Good morning. How are you today? I'm fine, thank you. I just wanted to say beforehand, I wanted to just thank God that out of all of the somewhat bad news that we had in the past week, that there was one really good piece of news in my family, and that is that we had one member had not been vaccinated. And last week, I was able to convince him to go, and he got his first shot after a year of resistance. And I thank the Lord for giving me some patience and also giving him, I think, some thought about what vaccination would mean. So that was a happy moment for us during this past week. Let me address Luke 2 in the reading that we had today. In the 1990s, a friend and I had just climbed West Rattlesnake Mountain in New Hampshire. He and I were looking at Squam Lake from the summit, having a nice time, when a lady ran up to us and said there was a child missing. We immediately started going down the mountain, yelling for the child. There was no response to our calls, no sign of the child in the trees or rocks. We went back up the summit, but no one was there. We finally realized that the boy had been found and went down the mountain. I never wanted to go through that ordeal again, even though our search only was for 15 minutes. The most primal fear a parent can have is losing a young child and then trying to find him or her. It is the ultimate parental nightmare. Yet in Luke's reading, we see Mary and Joseph suffer through the nightmare as they realize Jesus, who was 12, is missing. After they attended the Passover in Jerusalem and were returning home, Jesus is nowhere to be found amongst their relatives and friends. They apparently returned to the city, and after 3 anxiety-filled days, finally find him in the temple discussing the laws of the faith with the Jewish scholars. No doubt Mary and Joseph have a great sense of relief in finding him. This moment is couched in a situation we can all relate to as parents. A universal emotion as relevant today as it was in biblical time. The second part of the reading is the response that Jesus gives to his parents when Mary says, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." And he responds, and Jesus is 12. He's on the verge of manhood in the Jewish faith. And he has what you might call a defining moment. Today we might call it a wow moment. Did you not know I must be in my Father's house? Here Jesus tells his parents and those who have read this passage about his unique relationship to God. We now know who he is. He has proclaimed his identity as God's Son. He has already dazzled the temple elders with his knowledge of the laws of the Jewish faith, but at the same time, he makes this grand pronouncement of who he is at the age of 12. Jesus knows his destiny, which is to carry out the divine mission of his Father, and sets the stage for his future ministry. In the end, his parents don't understand him, and obediently he leaves without any argument, for he is a good son. How is this reading relevant for our life today? Those of us who have had kids and remember them at the age of 12 or 13 might say this: we're talking about Jesus here. There's no way this relates to our kids today. However, let me give you a different perspective. Kids do surprise us. Let me give you some examples. A young girl, age 14, living in Tewksbury on a poor farm because she is an orphan and who suffers from very poor eyesight, learns from a school resident the only way she can get an education that's decent is by going to a school for the blind. One day she learns a commission that was managing the farm is coming to visit the residents, and when they come, she follows them around, waiting for an opportunity to speak to them. Just as the tour concludes, she confronts them and says, "I want an education." That challenge resulted in her life changing dramatically, for she entered the Perkins School for the Blind in a short time later. And when she entered, she could not read or write. She was ridiculed by other students because of her ignorance and lack of manners. She did not get along with some of the teachers. But all of these challenges did not deter her focus on her mission in getting an education. Remember, she is 14 and having this defining moment. Another example is a young boy growing up in Mississippi and later Michigan who stuttered so badly that when he was in school, his stuttering became so horrendous he gave up speaking. For 8 years, he was mute and never talked in class until high school, when as a young teen, he had his wow moment. A high school English teacher discovered his ability to write poetry and challenged him to read a poem to the class so as to prove he had written it by reciting it from memory. He met the challenge and did not stutter once in his delivery. From then on, he was able to talk. And he too started his journey to the profession he was to master. Again, a young teen. Both of these young kids had their defining moment that led to their ultimate destiny. The first, the young lady in the School for the Blind, the Perkins School for the Blind, was Annie Sullivan, who got an education, became the miracle worker, who turned out to be the teacher of Helen Keller, the ultimate teaching challenge. The second young person went on to become a great actor and the greatest voice in the American theater and movies in the last 50 years. His name, James Earl Jones, the voice of Darth Vader, and also the narrator of the New Testament, an audiobook which has been hailed as one of the greatest spoken word interpretations of all time. The last example I'd like to give is Carlotta Walls Linnea, a young black girl, age 14, living in Little Rock, Arkansas, decides that after the famous Brown versus Topeka school integration decision will allow her and other black teens to apply for admission to the all-white Central High School in the fall of 1957. She does not tell her parents that she's applying, but wants to go there because it is a new school, and compared to her old school, has better athletic teams and more options for college. It's close to home. A school that was to provide her far more opportunities than she had before. A decision at the age of 14 that was to present many challenges, such as the following. Not able to walk or drive to school, but had to ride in a vehicle in a caravan of U.S. Army Jeeps in the front and back of their car to provide them protection from a vicious mob that milled around the school. Told by the school administration she and the other 8 black students would not be allowed to participate in athletics or any other extracurriculars, could not attend any student activities. Was escorted by an Army soldier to her classes every day. Was subject to all kinds of racial slurs by white kids in the corridor. Could not go to the bathroom during the day for fear of a physical attack. In class, sat down in puddles of spit and glue as white students laughed at her. Had to bring lunch from home in order to avoid cafeteria line fights. Had a white girl continue to step on her ankle as she walked the corridor. And saw most teachers ignore or look the other way when these outrages occurred. Yet, in her memoir, A Mighty Long Way, she recounts the only place of comfort and security was the chapel in the school, where both white and black students went to pray, led by one of the teachers. The chapel was basically a classroom with chairs. But here she says, I found the spiritual fuel I needed to get through each day. I felt the presence of God there in these moments. And in those moments, it never occurred to me to ask God, why so much pain? When I thought about Jesus Christ and the profound suffering he endured, my own challenges seemed small. I told myself I surely could go on. She completed her sophomore year at Central High School, but that summer the governor, through legislation, was able to shut down the Little Rock school system. Her junior year was spent taking correspondence courses through a local college. In 1959, a judge ordered the schools to be reopened, and Carletta and one other student from the original students that attended returned for her senior year. As it was before, she was the only black student in her classes. Ignored, but she persevered on. Even though her home was bombed, her father was fired from his job in construction due to her being at Central High School. She kept her grades up and was accepted to Michigan State University for the next year. Most importantly, she fulfilled her goal and graduated from Central High School in 1961. As she said in her memoir after she received her diploma, she floated to her seat. I imagine she must have felt mission accomplished. What do these 3 examples have to do with the revelation by Jesus that he is the Son of God at the temple? All of these represent a crucial turning point in each of their lives, at an age that most of us think is too young. Jesus, we might expect, is the Son of God. He is somebody divine. But what about the others? What about the others? They had tremendous challenges in order to complete their respective missions and ultimately achieve their identities as adults. Children on the verge of adolescence can and do surprise us with their focus on what they want to do with their lives as adults. Not all children have this moment, but today's reading should give us pause that we should not underestimate their ability to do so. In this reading, the revelation by Jesus that he is doing his Father's business can give us a unique insight into our children's behavior at the dawn of early adolescence. This reading reveals the humanness of Jesus on the verge of Jewish manhood and truly sets the stage of what he is to become 18 years later as an adult. The link between Jesus the man and Jesus the Son of God is seen clearly in this reading and is revealed to all of us. Thank you.